And we are live. Hello, everyone. So, we'll just wait for someone to confirm that we are live and then we can start. So, yeah, we are live. Five people are already watching.
Nice.
And let's see who gives us the first confirmation in the chat. So,
I
what
think you.
happens is, what happens is like a funny thing. Hi, Alberto. Welcome back. So, in some of the videos, since I don't edit the streams too much, they remain as is. So people, even after, like when they watch it after the stream, they say, "Okay, you are audible," and I'm like,
Well, that's the beauty of Build with Hussein. Things are uncut. You get to see all the mistakes we
"Yeah,
make and
everything."
laugh at them.
Cool, seven people watching. So, hey, Rakesh. Rakesh is hi. Akash.
Hey, man.
Rakesh Sangam. Cool. Cool. Then let's start. So yeah, hi Akash. Welcome to the show. And let's get to building. Before that, let's introduce, like, why not you introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hey, folks, my name is Akash. I work as a software engineer at Razorpay. I contribute to a lot of open source projects, build a lot of open source stuff, and I'm currently in my free time building a product called Slanted, which you can check out at slanted.app.
Nice. I'll plant it app. I will share the link in the chat as well. So probably
Nice.
towards the end of the stream, as we discussed, we can have a quick run through of this. But
Yes.
yeah, other than that, this is episode 3 of Build with us and for FOSS. So on episode 1, we had Shivam, and last week we had Anup from Bruno, and now we have Akash. So let's discuss what we are going to build today. What's the agenda?
Yeah, I'll be working on this project called Diode.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see my screen, this is the
Yep.
GitHub repository of this project.
Mm-hmm.
And Diode, I'll explain what Diode is before we even start building, and then I'll explain what we'll be building today in this live stream. Before that, Diode itself, I started building in 2022, and it was one of the winning projects in FOSS Hack, which is organized by FOSS United.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I haven't touched this project since 2022. So you'll see parts of this live stream where I look back at my own code and laugh at things that I did. But that's the beauty of things. It shows that you have grown over the years. Um,
Nice. Before this, I was telling you a fun fact, right?
huh?
So that FOSS hack, two people came second. Do you remember?
Okay.
You were
I
one.
actually don't.
You came second, right?
I actually don't know if there was any
Yeah, there was
for.
like a 1 lakh, then 50,000, then no.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I remember there were two people in the second.
Uh-huh. So that's when I heard of you the first time. I was the second person.
Nice.
So that's why I didn't tell you offline. I wanted to see. Okay. So I also
Yeah.
built a project like that was built on Frappe. I haven't touched it since then as well. Something Digi Store. So it was a digital something like Gumroad. Digital Digi Store.
I
So you
remember.
can.
Yeah, I remember now. I remember seeing your video as well.
Mhm,
I was
mhm,
sort of curious when
mhm.
saw Gumroad, right? Because I use Gumroad.
Yeah.
So
So
I
my
remember
plan was
seeing.
that, but then again, I don't know. Stuff changed, scope changed, left it. So as you can see, I started it on. Yeah, I have screenshots as well. 2 years ago. Yeah, exactly the same time your project began.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mine has 32 stars. If I don't star it, so I have 33 because I have starred it as well. So exactly the same stars as well.
Exactly the same. So
What a
we are,
coincidence.
yeah, we are neck to neck over here as well. Second place.
Cool. Cool. Yeah,
um,
that was a fun fact. That's when the first time I read your name there, and then so I've been like following you on Twitter since then, and then now I got to meet you, and we met at India FOSS 3.0.
yes.
Yep, that's the backstory. Cool. So what is Diode? What does it do? Hi, Louis. Welcome back. Happy holidays to you as well.
Okay. Let me actually start the dev server. I'll give a walkthrough of what the project itself is.
Cool.
Um, Interesting. I'll have to do it in incognito. There are some changes from slanted that's showing up in my regular tab, but it's fine. Uh, okay, so Diode is a open source tool
Mm-hmm.
that is so it's an open source API proxy service which allows you to add in your own origin API endpoints, and Diode will act as a proxy. So it will send requests on your behalf. And because it is a proxy, it can do various other things because it sits at the middle of API calls. Um, so in the hackathon itself, the initial plan was to only build the part where you manage API secrets. For example, let's say I create a project called test,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have ever used, let's say, third party APIs, if you have used any Unsplash API, they would have provided you with a secret or an API key,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
they would want you to include in your API request. And based on that, they can charge you or they can authorize you and allow you to use their service. But the problem is when you're using that API on the front end itself, then you would end up exposing your API key,
Makes sense.
which becomes a problem. So, and then you'd have to, if it's a simple front end project, you would have to spin up a backend server, write one API route just to proxy that Unsplash API because you wanted to hide your API secret. So that is
Genuine
where,
problem.
yeah, genuine problem. I've faced this multiple times. That is exactly where this project started off. So what happens is you, let's say, provide or add an API to this project. For now, I'll just put in example.com because I don't have the Unsplash docs open. But what would happen is this will be, let's say, your Unsplash API URL, and they
Mm-hmm.
would give you something called a key, and they'll ask you that, okay, in the request headers, just include this authorization
Token.
key,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then include whatever key that they have given you. Based on
Mm-hmm.
this, you can send API requests. So in this tool, what you can do, you can actually add these secrets. Let's say this is my Unsplash key, something, something, and this will get stored on a server. It will be encrypted. You cannot really see it even if you get access to the database.
Mm-hmm.
And you can directly reference it over here. So you can just say Unsplash key. And save your changes. And now Diode has given you one endpoint, which is this first one, and you can use this on behalf of your original endpoint. So whatever requests I send to this, Diode will automatically forward them to this URL and apply whatever request headers or query parameters you specify here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this itself, if I open right now in a new tab, because it's actually forwarding example.com, I'll just simply see this example.com site because it's a proxy, right? The URL is the Diode URL, but it's simply proxying whatever example.com has.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so
Um,
now example.com works. Okay. Someone
yeah.
purchased and made it.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. When you open example.com, it briefly just mentions that this is an
Yeah.
example, which is very
Okay.
interesting.
Nice.
So this was the original plan of the project, but
Mm-hmm.
over time, in fact, during the hackathon itself, I think I started adding what's called middlewares. So whenever you're building an API, there are certain middlewares that you include, and here because Diode sits in the middle of your request response cycle, Diode
Mm-hmm.
can automatically enable certain middleware functionality without you having to write code for it. Now, let's say this
Mm-hmm.
API that I have now, this is public. Anyone can use it without any secrets or any key. But I can now enable restriction middleware and restrict it to certain domains or IP addresses. So if I select domains, it will
Okay.
do cores, cross origin request blocking, and it won't allow other websites to use this proxy URL that you have created. You can
Makes
also
sense. So
whitelist.
only your front end can call it.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. Because if you end up doing this and expose this on your front end, it's the same problem. People can again call this and get access. Um, so this is one middleware restriction. There were a bunch of other middlewares that were added as well. Rate limiting. So you wouldn't want people to, let's say, keep spamming your API multiple times. In fact, this is
Mhm.
very useful even if you're building, let's say, your own API, but you don't want to go through the hassle of building your own rate limiter
Rate limiting.
or writing your own caching rules and whatnot. You can simply put these APIs in Diode and enable these middleware. So it'll automatically ask you for like whatever number of requests you want to allow. Let's say I say maybe 5 requests in 60 seconds. Give this a save and um, yeah, give this a save and come to this example proxy URL that I have. If I make more than 5 requests in a minute, I'll start seeing too many requests made. Yeah.
Okay, nice. That was very cool.
Yeah, so it automatically handles like your request window and how many requests are allowed, and it restricts it based on the IP address of the client that is requesting.
Nice.
Um, the best middleware as of now, I feel, is this last one, which is partial query. To give an example of this, I'll have to actually change the origin endpoint URL. This middleware works with JSON APIs. So I'll just use this example mock API. Let's use this one. Um, let's change the API URL, save, and I'll also open Hopscotch because now I want to see JSON. Okay, so now I have the partial query middleware, and what happens is, let's say you're using some third-party API and it returns a lot of data.
hmm
Um, and I only want some fields from this data. I don't really require all of them. So what I can do is I can add a query parameter, let's say diode filter. It should be diode filter. And there is a syntax that you can use to specify what fields you want in your JSON. So let's say I only want the title of each post over here. So I
hmm
just specify title, give this a send, and it will only filter out title and
Ah,
send that to you.
kind of
Um,
applying a transform on that, whatever response it got, and then it sends you back that response.
Exactly. You can
Okay.
select multiple fields. Let's say I also want the ID. And this entire syntax itself is mentioned in the project, what syntax you can use. But it's quite powerful. If you have a very nested, deep JSON structure and you only want some parts of it, you can specify it over here and only get that information. It reduces your payload size and makes the request faster as well because all the processing happens on the server completely.
Nice.
Yeah, so this middleware is actually my favorite because it is something that I feel like I'll always use as a front end developer. I want to filter out certain responses.
Yeah,
Um,
like bringing it to the browser and filtering, like it's on the JS side, the data comes, like the client has to filter. So best
yeah.
idea is to probably filter it before sending. So,
Mm-hmm. Um, the other thing Diode right now does is it actually monitors your API at a certain level, which is very basic and which is what we'll sort of improve today in this live stream. But you can see the number of successful calls that were made to your API, how many
hmm
of them failed, what was the average response time.
hmm
These are just three numbers. You don't really see why your APIs failed, what was the status code, or any other information about the API monitoring.
hmm
So this is the aspect that will be improving in today's live stream.
Nice. So so before I go, like the UI looks beautiful and it doesn't look like it was built in a hurry or a hackathon. Good. You have anyways, like I've been following you on Twitter, like your UI UX, what do you say, taste is really nice.
I think this
Neat.
project. So what happened was I tried using Chakra UI for the first time with this,
Mm-hmm.
and I just ended up using most of the default components, whatever is there, without much
Mm-hmm.
styling, eliminating a lot of inputs, a lot of text, only
Mm-hmm.
keeping things that are that make sense. So I think that's why it sort of came out nice.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but
No,
there's a
even
lot.
the center like thing that okay, um, it's not all white, so the center
Mhm.
div sits on top of that background, giving it a nice, what do you say, effect.
Yeah, yeah,
That's cool. Cool.
yeah.
We'll talk
Overall, I
more.
think.
What's Yeah, yeah, go ahead. You were saying something.
Overall, I think the UI is very minimalistic, which I sort of like. That is sort of something I try to do with any project I'm trying to build.
Yeah, yeah, that's like my taste as well. That's why I said like the minimal, the better. It looks so
Yeah.
clean, right? Only the necessary stuff is there. No, even the use of colors, right? It's like very
Hmm.
nice. Yeah, what's the tech stack? What have you used to build this?
Okay, so this project itself
Can
was
you zoom in
um,
like one, at least one level? I think
is this
one,
fine?
one. Yeah, looks fine. The audience can tell more, but I think it will be fine.
Okay. So this project itself was a learning project for me because I wanted to, learn new technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And that time I decided let's spend some time learning Next.js, proper server-side rendering. I had used Next.js only with static site rendering, but in this project I wanted to explore Next.js with server-side rendering. Originally, I think it was Next 11 then, but
Mm-hmm.
just yesterday I think I upgraded this project to Next 14. um, Still using the pages router, no app
Mm-hmm.
router or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And for UI, as I mentioned, it's Chakra UI.
Mm-hmm.
And the ORM for this project is Prisma, something that I was finding very interesting at that time. And Postgres as a database and Redis as a key value store for caching and rate limiting.
Cool. You also have like a Docker Compose file.
Yeah, so you can just self-host it. It's funny how people mention Next.js is very hard to self-host, very hard to self-host.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if you don't use, the edge parts of Next.js,
Mm-hmm.
you can easily self-host it because the overall, like the project itself is a single server which is serving files. Only the edge part is a bit of a vendor lock-in right now because for that you need different adapters for different cloud providers.
Mm-hmm. Vercel or Netlify or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Let's actually let me discuss actually what we'll be building a bit. Let's try to scope it out a little because
Yeah.
monitoring itself is a huge thing. So I don't want to pick up something very huge. So there is a thing called status page by Atlassian. In fact, there are a lot of tools like this which allow you to
Mm-hmm.
see these status of your backend or your services that are there and show it to the user that hey, this is the status of our APIs. If there is some incident or something goes down, you can
Mm-hmm.
immediately see that something is wrong on their end and they are working on correcting it. For example, here I can see Intercom had a major outage um, at this time, 12th October. Um, so this is exactly what we'll be building. Status pages
Mm-hmm.
itself can get very complicated. So you can see like there are multiple services and then you have the response times and metrics, everything displayed over here. You can see the past incidents and the data the team has provided. All
Mm-hmm.
this is really cool, but it's not exactly what we'll be building. We'll only be focusing on this top bit, showing the status of your API, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's functional, whether it's throwing errors or what is happening.
Makes sense. I set up a uptime page recently, so I've shared it to you in the chat. So this
Okay.
is powered by this open source Uptime Kuma. Uh, if you open the chat, right? Yeah, that.
Just a sec. Let's see. Yeah.
This basically tells you the uptime status of all the website, the platform, the LMS.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Looks like you have 100% uptime everywhere.
Yeah, I think it is 60 minutes. I don't think it takes a long duration, or maybe I haven't set it. But
Hmm.
yeah, probably it will be less.
Nice.
Because I think one of them is on Netlify, two are Frappe Cloud. Yeah.
Hmm. I see. Yeah, these sort of things are very interesting because when you're building an API and deploying it on prod, it's
Hmm.
very important to make sure that things are functional.
Yeah.
And the interesting bit is with this, you can integrate a lot of stuff as well. Let's say your API stops working, and then you can set up an alert saying that send me an email or send me a call at night just to wake me up and let so
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
can go about fixing it.
So I
So
get a
this.
Telegram alert, by the way. So whenever one of this goes down, so I was recently changing my domain for the a platform which was this guy was monitoring. So
Mhm.
they have this, just give me the bot token and channel ID and we'll send you a alert whenever it goes down. So they send the status code with the alert in a Telegram group. That's interesting. That all through
Nice.
UI, they have the configuration. That's
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's very useful at least to get a visibility of how things are working.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's used
Uh,
by many people, then it becomes more important.
yep, exactly. So that is the scope, and the reason I hope it sort of makes sense why this monitoring itself fits in well with the project because
Yeah.
Diode sits in the middle of APIs, so it is where it can see whether your API calls are going through or if it's failing, whatever is happening to your API.
Hmm.
So that's why it's sort of a logical extension to what the project is.
Makes sense.
Okay, so I guess let's start then.
Yeah, let's start. Let's get building.
Yeah, let me start writing bugs. So let me just check out to a new branch so that we can build in one isolated environment. And the first thing we'll do is we'll start by setting up some models for our schema so that we can actually generate the types for this. Okay, so the scope of this is again sort of small. So we'll only be including stuff related to monitoring.
Hmm.
And the plan is that the user, when they go to their project, inside a project, they can create multiple monitors. So just like they can create API routes, just
Hmm.
below this, there'll be an option to add a new monitor. And that monitor itself can have an option to specify the endpoint URL that you want to monitor.
Hmm.
You can perhaps, let's say, change the frequency of monitoring, maybe once every minute, once every day, or however you want.
Hmm.
And we'll need one more place where we can store all the logs, whatever logs we are getting from every check that we run.
Makes sense.
So let's actually create one model for monitor. This can have an ID, string default UUID. Copilot is helping me a lot. Name.
So this is like common story now.
Yeah.
Even Anup was saying, okay, Copilot is going to.
Uh, it's actually very useful, but you should know that what it's writing is actually correct because Copilot
Yeah, yeah.
cannot make sure it's actually right.
Correct. And one more thing I recently realized is it can write very naive code sometimes.
Mhm.
That it so in a Python project recently I was writing and I wanted it to uppercase the first letter of a string. So
Mhm.
what it did was it sliced and uppercase the first letter, then joined it with the rest of the letters instead of just directly calling the capitalized method. It was like,
Nice.
why? I even
Over
have that in a PR.
engineering for the win. um, right. So name, ID. Let's also put a description so that you can say what this monitor is for.
Hmm.
And the important bit, the API URL, what URL you want to monitor.
Hmm.
And similar to an API route, this will also take, let's say, the query params and headers. Method, I'll just keep it as get. We'll only be monitoring get requests right now. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe later on we can add support for other API methods. Um, and what else? It'll be associated with a project, which is why I added a project ID.
Mm-hmm.
And in Prisma, because it's associated with a project, one project will have multiple monitors. So I can specify it over here. Have you worked with Prisma before?
Yeah, sort of in one project, I guess, because I
Hmm.
found it very nice. It's like you define this and they generate this auto completion API, right? And that's
Right, right.
the DX was very nice.
Exactly. This is the exact
Yeah,
thing that got me into Prisma as well.
yeah.
The type system and the schema file, it's really nice. Um, we can also
So
define a
even how
feature.
you model the relations is like clean and then
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I like the Prisma client, the types that it generates.
yeah.
Um, and this, but one thing I sort of dislike about Prisma is the AP, queries that it runs is not very optimized.
Ah.
So, for example, if you're, let's say, updating something, it will actually first do a select. It'll run a select query to get what you want to update,
Mm-hmm.
and then it will run the update query, even
Oh,
though only
two
update one.
queries. Okay.
This is like, I think, a simple case, but I've seen instances where it can run multiple select queries, which could have been condensed into one query.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's because it's an ORM, so it gives you that object, schema that you can
Mm-hmm.
use. So it's very hard to just do one-to-one mapping between both of them,
Mm-hmm.
object ORM and the SQL. Anyways, so I've added name, description, API URL, query params, headers, and frequency. We'll be using cron syntax to define the frequency at which um, we are monitoring the APIs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes
So
sense. Flexible.
yeah, very flexible. You can specify your own intervals and stuff. Um, then we can add another model, which will be the monitor log. So this is where we'll store all the logs of our monitoring that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So this will have ID, cool, monitor ID. This is the monitor it's associated with.
So
Mm,
why does it have two fields? I don't know. Monitor ID and monitor.
right. So what happens is when you're specifying, let's say, a relation, here I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
that project ID is supposed to be an ID of a project. So
Okay.
what it does is it's creating a relation that, okay, project, this field will be available in the types it generates, and
Mm-hmm.
it will be of type project, and this is the relationship constraints that are there. So this is the foreign key fields project ID. It references the ID inside project over
Mm-hmm.
here, and then you can specify your cascading rules over here.
Yeah, kind of like references
Mhm.
in SQL. Yeah.
Yeah. And here I can also add, because a monitor can have multiple monitor logs, there will be, we can call this monitor log, and this will be an array of monitor logs. So this is a way to specify one to many relationship. Monitor
Mm-hmm.
will have multiple monitor logs.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, this was the one of the things that like I really liked about Figma is that not Figma, this
Mhm.
Prisma. Figma is like I don't know what is happening with the deal. I was like, it is in my back of my mind that Adobe Figma deal got cancelled, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why the Figma came out. But Prisma is that this one-to-many thing, right? When it comes to the API side, it is like, okay, you can get a monitor and then dot project dot logs. It will give you the logs, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Prisma. That is the thing I love about it, which is sort of why I don't want to move from it. But the things it does
What have you
underneath,
used in Slantit?
for slanted, I actually don't require an ORM. So I'm using Firebase,
Okay.
and the database requirements is very, very less. So it's just one collection where I store user data, like who has purchased, who hasn't. So
Mm-hmm.
it's simply Firestore and whatever SDK they give.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Um, okay, so for monitor log, we have ID of the log status. Status will be the status code that the API responds with. Response we can store over here, but I don't think we'll be storing it right now because um, we won't be doing much with the response, and the response itself can be of different types depending
Mhm.
on the
At
kind
least
of
the status code is fine, I guess, because that can be
status.
useful.
Yeah, and created at when the monitor was run. And then there is monitor ID and monitor relation. We can also add an index. This will be on monitor ID because we'll have a lot of logs
Hmm.
depending on the frequency the checks run, and we want to fetch all the logs for a given monitor ID. So adding an index will actually
Speed up.
help us out with performance a bit. I don't remember the syntax for adding index, and Copilot doesn't seem to help here as well. Hmm, let's see.
It's
Now
correct.
this, uh, yeah, it looks exactly like this, but I don't know if I'm supposed to put anything here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I guess maybe it's fine. It'll probably complain if something goes wrong. So um, we can actually run a command called Prisma format, or just simply format the document because I have Prisma extension installed.
Hmm.
And this just cleans up certain things, some alignment and stuff. I think it was anyways formatted. Okay,
Hmm.
so I guess our model is ready. I don't think there's anything else that has to be added here. This looks fine. We can come back and edit it if we need anything else.
Cool.
Now the fun part, which is actually generating this schema. So Prisma migrate dev. So I've created a migration,
Hmm.
and if you notice the migration that is generated, it will have the SQL commands that can create the table and set up all the relations and indexes,
Nice.
which is really nice. So I didn't have to manually set up all this, it's all done through Prisma.
Hmm.
Okay, now the migration is complete. I can actually start. Um, I'll actually generate the types now itself. So Prisma generate. This will generate all the TypeScript types. And now
Hmm.
my Prisma client can actually make use of the new schema that is generated. And let's also start the Prisma Studio so that we can explore the data.
Nice port.
Yeah. Just let me know if the zoom is fine.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
should I?
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So here I can see that we have like 5 models, an API route project. This is something that we had created from the UI, so we can explore that data here. And
Hmm.
we have a new models monitor and monitor log here as well. Nice. Um, the next thing is let's actually jump to the UI part now. We'll just set up some UI so that we can start adding the API as well after we are done with the UI. Um, I'll keep the UI actually quite simple because since the project is using Chakra UI and there are parts of the project that already look nice, as Hussein had mentioned. So we'll copy paste a lot of code and just reuse them.
That's fine.
And this is also probably the part where I look at my old code and laugh at it. So let's actually jump to the project page, which is this. Yeah. So here, so the entire page is actually broken down into components. There is an API section, secrets section, and then the danger zone. So exactly that over here as well. API secrets, danger zone. And we can bring in a new section which will be monitors over here.
Hmm.
And I'll keep the same padding and everything, and this will also get the project. We'll start creating this component now, and this will list all the monitors that are created in this project. So let me jump to components section, monitors.
Okay, you
Um,
have used TypeScript. Nice.
yes. Uh, I think after this project, I never looked back, at least for TypeScript. Every project I started working on where I needed JavaScript, it's always been TypeScript.
Okay.
Um, so I've just copied the entire
I
code.
find it hard. I don't know it. I find it like I have started two projects, I guess, and both I failed almost with TypeScript because a lot of fighting with the types. I don't know why.
Maybe I'll convince you after this call to switch.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see how
Let's
it
see.
goes. So I've just copied the entire API's component because we want to keep most of the things similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and here I can specify the props that this component will take, which will mostly be a project, but this project itself, what will the project have? We have to specify that. Um, so we want the project and the rest of the things that we are interested in. In fact, this project comes from Prisma. So this project type that was generated,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can't see it here, but if I just look at this, I can see that it has ID and name, which is the same thing that was specified in my schema over here. ID, name, and these are the additional things that are there. But the scalar fields are only ID and name.
Mm-hmm.
So the project will have, of course, the project details, and it will also have monitors. And this monitors itself will be of type monitor, which again comes from Prisma, which is the same type
Can
it
you
has.
zoom in one level? Ah, nice. Better.
Yeah. So, and this will be an array of monitors because that's exactly what we had specified over here. Monitor will be an array of monitors. In fact, I think it's capital M, so we should change this over here. Okay. Um, a lot of imports are missing. Let's actually just copy paste the imports as well. Then we can actually format the entire thing just to have stuff that we need. Mm, there's an error somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah.
import I. Okay.
Um, I don't need to import Prisma client because I'm already importing here. All right. So let me organize the imports. Let me format the document. Awesome. Now here, this APIs itself actually the component is quite large because you can actually create an API which opens this modal. You enter in your details. But for each API, you have multiple options as well. You can duplicate it, you can delete it, and everything. And each of those are separate APIs.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, we'll just focus on creating because I quickly want to create the monitor, and the fun bit will be actually creating that status page and running the monitor in the specified frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually remove wherever there is duplicate logic for the API. We don't need duplicate and delete right now. Duplicate we don't need, delete also we don't need. Here I'm actually using just Axios and plain state management. Looking back at it now, I would have probably used React query if I would have known about it then, uh, because I'm just managing my own loading and error states and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So all
Yeah,
that.
even use SWR would
Ha
have
ha.
been.
Yep. Open duplicate we don't need this as well.
So while you are deleting, there is a question specifying types using an interface versus type. Which method is better or are both fine?
Yeah, that's a great question because even I try to figure out what's the difference between both of them. But I think I finally figured it out to some extent. So when you're using type, you're actually creating an alias of another type. So this itself is a type definition.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever TypeScript, let's say, expands your types, or let's say you write a generic, if you're familiar with TypeScript generics,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is you, let's say, create new type which takes a type parameter similar to how you take a parameter in a normal function. You're
Mm-hmm.
telling TypeScript that okay, accept a type parameter, and maybe do something with that type parameter. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually using new type somewhere else, um, let's say my props itself is this, I can specify the type parameter. Maybe it's another object of type string, and I think it's yeah. I'll get TypeScript errors right now, but the concept is now this generic that I've
Mm-hmm.
created, this when it's resolved, the
Mm-hmm.
way TypeScript resolves a type and an interface, that I think is different. And what happens is whenever it generates the final .d.ts files, whenever you bundle and generate the JavaScript and the type definitions,
Mm-hmm.
there you'll see that the type definitions, all of these get expanded a lot.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I've seen with some projects. I don't know if that is the actual difference, but with interface, what happens is your interfaces are in general a bit more lightweight because TypeScript does not tend to expand interfaces um, over and over, if that makes sense. So it's a bit abstract, and I'm still not sure if that is the correct understanding. um, but that is sort of what I've experienced. And in general, I've read that if you are specifying props for a React component, it should be as an interface, not a type. But
Okay.
this project does things in a different way. Everywhere I've used types.
Consistency, right?
Yes, consistency. It sort of makes me a little mad looking at it, but maybe it's fine. We'll just ignore it for now.
Cool.
um, okay, so oh yeah, so here I had to actually specify another field which will be secret, and this can also come because if you see some of these inputs allow you to enter secrets. Let's say I specify example.com, and here this red highlighting that I'm getting is because this input is allowing you to enter secrets. I can put
Okay.
unsplash
So
key.
how are you highlighting it?
Yeah, so I have a blog post on this.
Can you share?
uh, yes, actually I
Probably
can.
in my next project that I'm starting on Build with Us, and I'll require this. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
kind of making a automation tool where I might need to place what do you say, some bits of dynamic variables inside text.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was actually inspired from the input that you see in Postman.
Hmm.
Like they highlight when a variable is missing or if it's there. So the solutioning I went through this, it in itself is a huge like exploration. The end result, you'll be surprised how simple the code ended up being just to do this. But I won't spoil it. Do give it a read.
Building highlighted input fields cool. I will keep it open here so we can fun, right?
Yeah. Okay, so now here I can start changing some text. This is no longer API routes. This will be monitors. We can. I'm just keeping things simple right now. We can go ahead and change the copy everywhere else later on as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Let's get it working, then we can polish.
yep. So I've created. So I'm going through every monitor and like displaying the details about it so that the user can click and go to the monitor page. This will become monitor ID. We don't need to show API method because we'll only be focusing on get requests.
Hmm.
And we don't need, actually we do need text, but we don't need margins over here. This will be a new route for monitors. This will be monitor. I think that's about it. We don't really need to show anything else over here. All of this was for duplicating or deleting an
Hmm.
API. So that is a different thing altogether. Let's actually just do creating monitors right now. And this is the place where you configure your empty message. So here I can just say no monitors configured. Let's add one. Maybe that's fine. Instead of this plug symbol, I'll actually use telescope because you use that for looking out to things. I can't open the emoji picker for some reason. Let's see. Telescope emoji.
Do you use like Raycast or something?
No, I don't. I use Spotlight and only Arc. Arc has this
Yeah, that
UI.
I use Arc too, but like you get like I don't know, it's very nice. Raycast is cool.
Mhm.
So emoji
Um,
picker, conversions, everything from anywhere.
mhm. Nice. New monitor. Let's try to do something interesting here. I'll just highlight I'll highlight this and ask GitHub Copilot, not ChatGPT, go to GitHub Copilot to change this. Um, Suggest a better messaging here. Let's see what it comes up with. Start
Start
building
building.
a. Okay, I mean, I guess maybe it's fine. I don't know. We can change it
It's
later on if we want to. Um, okay. Now this bit is the form. So the form that you see when you're creating
mm-hmm,
something. If I
mm-hmm,
open the UI, yeah, this entire modal and the form that you see. So
mm-hmm,
here we actually only need two things: monitor name. Maybe we can change the placeholder. Let's say backend service health. This is just the placeholder, and
mm-hmm.
we don't really need the method. It'll be get only, so we can remove this drop down, and the endpoint URL will be the same. Okay, this doesn't have to be a flex box, and we can actually remove. Um, cool.
Good.
And there is this footer, which is the submit button. So here we can just say create and configure your monitor. And this modal is for duplicating, which we don't need. Yeah, so we can remove it till here. Nice. Now I need to specify the types. So here I'm actually using a library called React Hook Form. Have you used this before?
Mm, I have read its documentation and all. I haven't used it, but
Hmm. It's actually very interesting. So when you're building forms, right, at least what happens in React when you change text in one input,
mm-hmm.
the entire UI re-renders because your state updated.
No, no, got it. I have used it, used it. Not in React, but React Native. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay,
Now I
got it.
recall. I've used it.
Uh,
Yeah, it's nice. It gave you, so what I used it for, I gave it the schema to render a form, kind of a dynamic form render. I created
hmm,
one a while back.
interesting.
Yeah. So we
The
have
thing is
doc types
that
in Frappe, right? So they have this
uh,
metadata that, okay, this field should be read only, this should be. So there is a predefined structure. So you get the metadata and use it to render a form. So this library helped a lot in that time when I was trying it out.
mhm. For Diode, this library actually is very useful because it cuts down on your re-renders. So
Hmm.
it only re-renders your UI when some other value depends on, let's say, the input. Because the thing is, this API config, place this UI has a lot of form elements, a lot of switches, inputs, a
Hmm.
lot of things. If I'm, let's say, changing text here, the UI over here doesn't need to update. But
Hmm.
because the entire thing is like one huge form, if I update
Hmm.
input here, state updates, and these things also re-render.
Ah, okay.
But with React hook form, that bit got eliminated because only certain paths depend on this URL, which is like, yeah, I think query parameters depends on it because if I add a query parameter, things update here. So only these two bits will re-render when API URL changes. Rest of them will continue to stay the same.
Cool.
I could literally see the UI slowing down, which is a rare thing.
Hmm.
And this
Before
page,
using that,
yeah,
before using
before
React
using that.
hooks.
Yeah, because the whole page was re-rendering, and I'm using Chakra UI, which in itself is not a very lightweight library, I would say, and things keep
So yeah,
re-rendering.
recently, Nikhil Kothari, right? Like he is from the commit company, so they have built Raven. I think he also gave a talk in India First 3.0. So He recently migrated from Chakra UI to plain Redux plus Tailwind.
Uh-huh. I think
So
that
he,
that is going to be my go-to,
mhm,
UI library stack for new projects.
yeah,
But for slanted as well, I'm using Chakra UI.
yeah, as long as like doesn't come in the way. So he
Yeah.
sent me a message. I'm trying to find how much packet this bundle size they reduced because Chakra UI is like very big. Let me try to find it. Bundle.
It'll be very large.
Initial bundle. So the initial bundle was 2.9 megabyte, just JavaScript. And now
Okay.
they have code split everything. And when the initial bundle is under 500 kilobyte.
Hmm.
Okay. TipTap takes another 500 kilobytes. So the UI feels smoother. I asked him one thing, does it feel smoother? And it was
Hmm.
like, yes, because ultimately that's what matters. Okay, it should, maybe it's not that fast, but if it feels fast, right, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. Chakra UI is quite heavy. At least if you notice the final JS bundles, right?
Hmm.
It's very hard because the thing is it includes libraries like Framer Motion as well, which
Yeah,
is also sort of heavy. So even if you don't want to use animations, you will still be paying the price for Framer Motion.
makes sense.
Um, okay, I think yeah, we have come quite far. I've actually built this entire monitors component. Let's actually see if things work. Monitors. I'll have to update the API, not the API, the
Hmm.
DB fetch where I'm fetching the project. So now I need to also fetch the monitor data. So it will be monitor, and I only want the name of the monitor here. Maybe the ID. ID is also fine. Yeah, that's about it. I don't need the rest of the information, so let's not even fetch it. And
Cool.
here it's not complete monitor anymore. We just need ID and the name. Okay. Now let's see. So what am I missing? I think I named it incorrectly. It's supposed to be monitor. Let's actually just use a refactor function. So I'll just change this everywhere. All right. And what else is wrong? Hmm, interesting. It's picking up everything for some reason.
Doesn't the project type the main that is coming from Prisma already has it or something?
So this actually has the entire thing. So if I
Hmm.
see monitor, it has actually ID, name, description, everything. But I'm only using ID and name. So that's why I'm sort of restricting the type to only include ID and name, not the rest of the thing.
For some
Um,
reason, I think the pick isn't working. Why isn't? Or it just the UI maybe.
Maybe actually it's because of this, because we are only using secret name. Monitor is
No.
declared. Let's see. Project data is not assignable to this.
Property monitor is missing.
Did I not name things correctly somewhere? It is monitor, and here it's monitor as well. What is this? Project and monitor array. Seems fine to me. It's very weird. It's saying it's an error. Okay, maybe then I'll just switch it back to just using monitor. Um, and we can directly pass the entire thing for now. I'm not sure why it's complaining about this.
Exactly the same reason why I don't use TypeScript.
No,
And the
I
errors
thought,
are not helpful, man. The errors are not helpful.
yeah, errors are definitely not very helpful. Um, I think I sort of know what the reason might be because I'm actually using a different type definition. I had to specify monitor here as well. So that's the problem.
Okay. This is the exact reason. So I get stuck around for then I ended up using any in a lot of places, which was I
Hmm.
think well against the reason you use TypeScript.
Yeah, yeah, don't ever do that again. uh,
So I thought it's better to stick to JavaScript until okay, something comes up or some click happens that okay, now you should shift to TypeScript. But yeah, that hadn't happened till now. Let's see.
okay, now it's happy. Although I'm getting a different error now, which is margin is yeah,
So
for this I
it's
think I need to bring in, actually this is not the right way of doing it, but just for consistency I'm doing it. What you would actually do is extend the type, because I want to pass in chakra style props. I should actually do it this way, saying
okay.
style props and this. So that way I can actually get an
Hmm.
autocomplete of all style props. I can change the background color of things and everything. But
Nice.
here, which is an older component where I didn't follow that, here I don't get any auto completion with the
Okay.
types. So
Nice.
you live and learn.
2 years, right? 2 years or one and a half year. I don't know. 2022.
Two years.
2 years now.
Let's see. So I can see things are showing up here. Maybe the padding is not correct. I should make it. Oh yeah, I need to add a divider as well. Yeah, and here we don't need margin, I think. Okay, yeah, now I think it's fine. It looks, um,
Or
yeah,
maybe
looks
change the
fine.
icon, the
Oh yeah, yeah,
emoji.
this I want to change this. This should be the telescope icon. I can't search in the code. I'll just copy it from here. Yeah, this is fine. Let's see.
There
Cool.
should be some extension in VS Code that lets you type emojis like you do in Discuss or something. Like you type the colon key and then it
Uh-huh.
shows you the emoji autocomplete. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually wondering the exact thing yesterday, where I was using emoji. For some
Mm-hmm.
reason, I don't know why. Sometimes the emoji picker doesn't work in VS Code. At least the Mac OS emoji picker, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm not invoking it the right way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so now we have the UI for creating a monitor. Let's actually just create an API as well quickly to create the monitor. So here I can add, let me just copy this create API route URL, not URL, API, and create a new monitor API based on this. Yeah. So here I can say that the request method should always be post. If it's not, then I'll just throw an error. We'll get name method we won't need.
Mm-hmm.
Project ID is what we need. Yeah. There is some logic here for duplicating, which we no longer need. We only want to create new monitors. So I'll actually remove this duplicate itself. And here we don't need this. We can directly refer. Hmm. And this will be Prisma monitor create. And now I can specify name. We need method. No, we don't need method. API URL we need.
Mm-hmm.
This is already set up to apply query params as well if it's there. Project ID is fine. ID, We'll auto generate the ID, so we don't need to pass that. Description, actually, we didn't see the defaults that were set in the model. I actually want to set up some defaults for all of these.
Hmm.
Default for description will be empty string. API URL is required. Query params is not required. Headers is not required. Frequency, I think it should be required, but for the time being, I'll make it an empty string because I don't want the UI to put
Hello,
UI.
rare computer. So there is in the chat
Oh,
someone
I
with a
see.
username rare computer says hello. So
Hey, hey. I sort of got confused what's trying to happen. Just so maybe I was in
yeah,
this zone
please
of
continue.
that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
There is actually a thing in the UI that's bugging me now. Look at the border radius over here. Let's quickly fix it. I just can't proceed without fixing it.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, now
Around
it's
the
fine.
screen.
So frequency will be default empty string. I think this is fine now. We can create a new migration. So npx prisma migrate dev smart model tools. Okay. Now I can generate my types. Awesome. So I don't need to pass caching. Headers is fine. Headers, actually, I think we have a default query params we need to pass. What else do we need to pass here? I think that's it. Rest are all optional. Cool. So that should create our monitor on the DB. That's about it. Nice. All right, let's actually test it out. I need to start the dev server as well. Hmm. So I can create a new monitor, give it some name, and put the endpoint URL here. I should get a 404. Okay, there was some other error. Let's see what the error is. Hmm, 404. So I think I did not place it in the correct.
So someone in the chat says, the rare computer says,
Hmm.
HTML CSS CSS3 आता है मुझे तो बस.
I
That's
see.
the starting point, right? Ultimately, it's like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript,
Yeah,
and then
exactly. I just
abstractions,
started with
abstractions.
HTML, CSS. JavaScript itself, I started learning after quite some time. With just HTML and
Hmm.
CSS, you can build some interesting projects. It might not be functional, but it'll be
Hmm.
interesting to build and share with others.
Yeah.
Shooting.
So for a college project, I built this. So you can't use anything other than HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So that was a introduction to web development, I guess. That was the class name. And you were supposed to build a food restaurant, a landing page for a restaurant, basically. So some
Hmm.
dishes, maybe you could add transitions and this and that. At that time, I learned a lot about DOM and this and that because then you can't use a React or something, right? Then
Hmm.
you have to go to the basics.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I actually started with HTML, CSS. So what I
Hmm.
used to do was I used to find good designs on Dribble
Hmm.
and try to recreate those just with HTML, CSS.
Right.
Back then there was no Tailwind CSS or anything as well. Um, and then slowly I learned JavaScript and made those UI that I was building for learning HTML, CSS. I made those functional.
Okay. Nice.
Um, cool. Our API, API for creating a new monitor is working. We can also see the monitor being created.
Nice.
Um, we can actually create the page for this as well. Let me actually just create one really quickly. So inside a project, there can be monitors. we'll have same as whatever for API route, we'll create one for monitor. This will be monitor ID. This component or this page is very, very large. We won't need a lot of these things. So let's just remove like a major part of this. We don't need proxy endpoint. Divider is not needed. API stats is not needed here. Project details is fine. We need, yeah, we don't need this switch. We need request headers and query params. All that is fine. In fact, all of these should become a separate component at this point because it's being shared at two different places.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe that refactoring we can do later, or maybe someone who's watching can actually contribute their changes, making the code base healthier or something.
Yeah, yeah, if you are watching this, looking for contributors.
Yes. Request flow is not needed. Middleware is not required. Save change button is required. Secrets we can keep. Deleting we are not doing right now, so we can remove. I think that's about it. We don't need API method as well. We can remove this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that should be it. Let me actually now make the page functional. So we don't need delete API. We will need updating. We don't need this copy function. We don't need any of this watch. No need of this effect. Okay, cool. Now we can start updating certain things. So from the user, we'll only want API URL,
Mm-hmm.
maybe description as an input. Here we don't need this. We need query params, headers, and none of these things. We only need frequency, which is where the user specifies the frequency of the monitors that run. And here, so this is sort of what I like about TypeScript. Now, because I've copy pasted things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can see the paths like this is no longer required. So I can just see as a squiggle that this shouldn't be there. You're doing things incorrectly. So I can
Mm-hmm.
just remove them. Um, Method I don't need this as well. And all of these are not required. There's only one, in fact, two things. What? I opened GitHub Copilot. I don't know how frequency this can be an empty string. Actually, no, we'll actually set the default values for this. Before that, let's also do the data fetching. So we'll fetch monitor based on the monitor ID that we get from the path.
Mm-hmm.
And this will include secret. Yeah, all this is fine. If let's say the monitor wasn't found, we'll redirect the user to 404 page. We can also change this to be monitor. Yeah, most of this is just correcting all the types and removing things based on whatever the types. TypeScript is whatever saying. So
Mm-hmm.
these are quite simple right now. Monitor description and monitor frequency. Okay. Looks like this page is also done. Let's actually go to that page and see what we get. Okay, looks very bare bones. Uh, but yeah, just by copy pasting Things are still working, which is surprising because I didn't run it until now, right? So I just saw the page and things are still sort of functional, which is nice. Let's organize our imports. Nice. Um, get server side props. All this is fine. Okay, now I'll just beautify this a bit. So I'll move this configuration section a bit down.
Yeah, that was also hurting my eyes.
This is fine. Origin endpoint URL query parameters request headers. We don't need so many dividers. Secrets we'll keep because you might still refer them here somewhere. So this is
Hmm.
fine, but we want to increase the padding. So margin bottom 32 maybe. 32 is a lot. Let's keep it 20. Um, yeah, it sort of looks nice now. um, we need one more input, which will be the frequency input. So we can add that over here. This will be a flex. This also I'll copy from some existing input. Yeah, let's copy this, then we can edit this further. Mm, so form control, this will be frequency, and I need the alarm clock emoji for this.
Yep. Perfect.
Help text.
I don't know, it's just my bias or not. Like emojis used in right way, like makes the UI even look cleaner.
Yeah, that's something I totally agree with. Um, it should not be overused, but when used in the right context,
Hmm.
it can work as a nice little icon and it brings a unique flair to your project.
Yeah, it
Uh,
makes the heading pop basically. It's not just boring stuff, right?
yeah, okay. This is looking nice. This should actually be frequency. Yeah. So here the user can specify in their cron syntax the
Hmm.
intervals or the frequency in which the API should be monitored. And put a placeholder as well. Six is fine. Okay. Cool. This is done. Let's
Looks like a
actually.
password, by the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's actually not keep it then. um, this is fine. Now I need to build the update endpoint, which is also where we'll start to do the actual monitoring bit. How we'll
Hmm.
trigger the
Hmm.
check function to monitor the API. So let's create a new API route. Yeah, we'll copy this. Um, won't be doing delete right now. This is the update part. So ID body query params is fine. Prisma monitor update, and here we want to update all the fields whatever the user puts and the API URL. There was some logic here that I had written for separating the API URL and query params, because the thing is the user can put your query params here in
Hmm.
the URL, or
Hmm.
they can put it inside this drop down as well, which is also something that I think Hopscotch has a similar
Hmm.
drop down. And you change things here, you can change things here. So both of them should stay in sync.
Hmm.
And this bit like sort of separates it out. So on the DB, API URL will always be just the API URL minus query params, even if the user
Okay,
puts it in the URL field.
makes sense.
They're updated. Okay. I think the update should also be fine now. Let's actually update something and see. So abc.com. Let's see what the error was.
There was an error.
uh,
Error
there was an error. And the interesting thing is, I don't know why this frequency field updated to the. Uh, Let me open the DevTools. So I'm seeing internal server error,
description.
description. I thought I was passing description. Let's see the payload here. Description is being passed. Did I rename description to restriction?
Hmm?
Let's see in the schema. What did I name it as? It is description. Let's see. Description. Or I think is that. I think I'm not even calling the right API. Let's see which API was being. Yeah, I'm calling the API route update API. So there should be monitors. Yeah. Now let's save. Cool.
Cool.
If I change this to abc.com, nice. So it is being saved, which is cool. Now we can actually start with the monitoring bit itself, which is the interesting part. Um,
Nice.
so the way these things work, I was reading about them. What happens is you specify, let's say, an interval. Um, I want the checks to run, let's say, every week or every month or every minute for that matter. And your cron job itself will run the code to it'll make a request to your endpoint and it will see how long it took and what was the status code and everything. Now, the environment in which we are in right now, JavaScript, and this itself, the way we trigger a cron job, cron should actually live outside your application. Like it shouldn't be a part of your application itself. If you are, let's say, in a large, um, service where there are multiple services talking to each other, cron itself should be maybe something like a message queue uh, that gets like a message gets pushed in the message queue at, let's say, certain intervals, and there is a service that picks it up and processes it. Because when you're scaling a system, you'll have like the same application running in multiple containers or multiple pods. So each of them maintaining their own cron doesn't make sense. The cron has to go outside. Or you can do like a webhook like thing where one server is running the cron and it triggers an API call to some other services and that processes your cron requests. But here we'll just be building cron inside the project itself. The project, like the application itself, will run its own cron jobs. Um, Not really a good practice, but I think it's fine. It'll be fun to learn and see what happens. Um, there is this nice site called crontab.guru in case anyone wants to fiddle
Yeah,
with.
yeah. I've used it quite a bit.
Yes. Uh,
Yeah, it's nice. Like it gives you a very readable, uh,
yeah, the
because it's like when some new folk looks at it, it's like completely doesn't make sense, and you can't re remember the order always, right? What
yeah,
comes
yeah,
first?
yeah.
Does the week come first or the minute come first? It's like,
Mhm. What I like is this random button, just seeing random combinations that can appear.
yeah.
Very interesting. There is this package, at least for Node, called Croner that we can use
Mm-hmm.
to trigger and evaluate cron jobs right inside Node. So we start a job with the cron, frequency description, and here this function will run in the specified interval.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll use this. Let's install it. I think even Uptime Kuma uses this.
Oh, nice. We can check.
Hmm.
Uptime,
Um,
GitHub. Yep, they have it in the package JSON.
so then most likely they're using it.
Yep.
Um, cool. So now I've created a new monitors file inside the internal library, and here we can specify two, three functions. First one can be, let's say, start monitor. This will take, let's say, the monitor ID,
Mm-hmm.
and here we can create a new job, which will be using cron from cronner, and this will take the pattern. This also we'll have to take as an input in this function. Instead of calling pattern, I'll actually call it frequency. This will be of type string, and this can go here. And the next uh, argument is the actual callback that we want to run. For now, I'll actually just Arc is asking me to update. uh, let's just put a console log. We'll change this to be the actual function that triggers the API and then stores the response.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can start, or I think the job automatically starts. We don't need this. Um, we also need to create a map to maintain all jobs. And here I'll just store this job with the given monitor ID. So every monitor will have one job running.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say the user triggers this start monitor again and again. We want to stop the existing monitor that is there,
Mm-hmm.
delete it from the map, and then we can start. So I'll just run stop monitor here. So what happens is whenever you start a monitor, it will first stop and delete existing monitor with the same ID,
Mm-hmm.
and it will start a new job and store that in this map.
So right now it is not persistent, right? So
Yeah.
maybe
Now,
at
right now it's
startup
not.
you might have to create. Uh,
Mhm.
mhm.
Yeah, we can actually have one more function, which will be start all monitors, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And here I can fetch all the monitors from Prisma. So let's find many. And here I'll have all the
So
monitors.
now I think like maybe it is a good idea to have some flag that okay, is the monitor enabled or disabled probably.
Yeah,
People
that's
may
actually a
want to
good thing
enable,
that we can.
enable, yeah, enable, disable, so they don't have to delete it to disable, right? They can just okay, disable it. I don't know.
Yeah, I won't be adding it now because
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
want to
fine.
actually get to the interesting bit. But someone watching definitely, that's a very useful thing. So you
Yeah,
can contribute it. Maybe a switch over here itself where you can
yeah.
turn it on or off. Um, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll go through each monitor inside monitors, and I'll just start the monitor.
Cool.
In fact, I don't even need to await here because this function is not really async. None of these are. Yeah, this is fine. Cool. And I can call this right at my entry point. So where is the entry point? I think I can simply call it um, when this file itself is imported because it'll run it initially, then it won't run. I don't know. Maybe I'll check when I should call this. That's the thing, right? Because your cron isn't supposed to really live in a serverless environment. Um,
Hmm.
Later on, if let's say we want to deploy this on prod or if someone is using it in a more production environment, instead of using something like cronner, these functions itself should be rewritten to, let's say, maybe push um, to, let's say, an external cron
Yeah.
service. So The external cron service is supposed to actually manage your cron
The
stuff.
actual running of the jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But for now, we'll just do it in application itself. Cool. Now, I want to start my monitoring when the API is updated. So whenever the user updates, I'll simply call start monitor. The ID will be the monitor ID, and the frequency will be whatever frequency they have passed.
Hmm.
This doesn't have to be a wait. Cool. So they should start the monitoring. Now we need to actually specify this function which will run the monitor, which will trigger the check. So let's create a new function over here. We don't have to export this, so this will just thinking. So this has to be, what should be a good name for this?
So what are you doing in this?
So this console.log that I've put inside cron, this is the
Hmm.
function that will run after every frequency.
Usually I call this functions handle, trigger, or like starting with handle. That's my convention at least. I've seen it
Mhm.
used in places, but yeah.
Let's actually go with that,
Hmm.
but I think we might have to change it because I can foresee something coming up. Let's see. Okay, some code suggestion by Copilot. So we get the monitor data given the ID,
Hmm.
and if there is no monitor, we just return. Is this a good idea? Maybe it is. Fine. Then we simply run fetch. Okay, so here instead of using fetch, I'll actually use Axios because we are only using get. So I'll
Hmm.
simply call get, and
Hmm.
here it shouldn't be just monitor API URL because the user can set some query params as well. So I'll actually refer. This is the whole API for API routes where you saw the things being proxied, middlewares being applied. This is the code for that.
Okay.
Um, so here actually we need to copy a bunch of code from here. All of these things.
So how did you get into open source?
So I actually got started without knowing that I was also even contributing to open source.
Oh.
No, so I just saw there is a site called GitHub where
Hmm.
people write code for some reason and make it available online.
Okay.
Um, Back then, I was using this software called Blender a lot,
Hmm.
which is this 3D graphics software.
That's where your
And
username comes from.
yes, yes, there's a long story to that as well. Um, so Blender has a lot of add-ons that you can install, and people used to create GitHub repositories with these add-ons where you
Hmm.
can download that add-on and use it. I used to wonder why do people make the code available? Why not just the final zip file, just a download button? Why the code as well?
Hmm.
Um, and then over time, I started looking at it as maybe like a GitHub for code. Sorry,
Hmm.
Drive for code. GitHub as Drive, Google Drive for code.
Okay.
So maybe let's say your system blows up and then you don't have a backup of your code. That is why people push on GitHub so that you have one copy. Um,
Hmm.
and that is how even I started. So I just created a GitHub account just to store my code in a safe place, just in
Okay.
case if my system gets destroyed or something.
Not as a collaboration thing, but as a version control then.
Yeah, yeah. And slowly over time, I learned what actually open source is. Blender itself is an open source project.
Hmm.
So that itself was that played a huge role in me understanding what open source was. Secrets. I'll have to fetch all of these secrets as well. Mm,
Hmm. So secrets are project level right now, right?
yeah, yeah, project level. And I think I need to update my query to include them. Yeah. So it'll be include project, include.
Oh, you could do nested includes.
Yes. I only need, I think I need everything for secret at least. Let's see what I did over here. Get API route, include project. Yeah, I selected the entire secret. So I need all the secrets. I need the ID as well over here. So project, it include project. It's actually select. So inside this, I want to select a few fields. I keep getting confused between select and include. ID I want to select and secret is also something I want to select. Prisma will automatically handle the joins and stuff for me.
Cool.
Okay, so now I should have some secrets here as well. This can actually go as a separate function now. Let's add it. So we export function parse secrets or secrets to record. So this will decrypt the secrets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's doing it in memory. So your database is still encrypted
Mm-hmm.
with all the secrets, and it decrypts it while sending the request.
So where is the token, the encryption token stored?
That is stored in your environment variable.
Okay.
So if I open env example, here you'll see there is you need to put your secret key and IV that you can generate. There's an example one given, but if you're using it, don't just use the example one, just generate a new one.
Cool.
Um, and here I can use secrets to record. This will be monitor project secret. Nice. I can maybe change it here as well because I extracted it as a function. Hmm. This will be okay. Cool. We can save it here. Yeah. All this stuff that is happening, they should actually be extracted out as a function now that it's being used at multiple places.
Hmm. Make it
Mm,
dry, right?
yes. Yeah. Um, yeah, this API URL can go here. We don't need this. Headers. We want to merge whatever headers is there from monitor. Cool. This is fine. So we have the query params, API URL, everything ready. We now can just call get finally and request URL to string. So we get the final API URL
Mm-hmm.
and we can specify the headers over here, which will simply be request headers. Um, is there anything else that we need to specify while sending request? There's actually one more thing we need to specify. This is something I recently learned, at least with Axios.
What is
There is
it?
this function called validate status. Um, if you have used Axios before, what happens is whenever your request, let's say has a response with a non 200 response code,
Mm-hmm.
Axios will throw an error. So you have to handle it in the catch block.
Okay.
But if you want to actually treat your status code as a success path, you can specify that here. So I can say that if status code is more than 500, that means this is my success path. Don't throw an
Okay.
error. If it
Okay.
doesn't satisfy, throw an error.
Okay.
The reason it's important here is because we want any status code to be treated as a success response because we'll store that status code.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. So we don't need
So
to handle it, at least like just store it for the user.
yeah. So we'll just say that all status codes are valid, and here we'll get a response. We don't need any of this. We need to measure the API response time as well. For that, I actually have some code already from API routes. It's using this function in Node called performance.now.
Okay.
And
Built-in,
yeah,
is
it
it a
actually
built-in
comes
thing?
from perf hooks, I think. There is a module called perf hooks. And I think this is a built-in module.
Okay.
So it can be used to measure response times in a more accurate way instead of using dates.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've put it in the wrong place. This has to go above the request, and this will come here. This will simply be the response time. And now finally I can create a new log,
So
which
the
will be,
Axios needs to await, right? Then only
oh
the
yeah,
time will be measured. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
good catch. Um, the data here will be catalog create. ID will be ID will be auto generated. We need monitor ID, which is simply the ID that comes from the function parameter.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need status, which will be the response status code. Created art will be autofilled. ID will be autofilled. Monitor itself is a join that doesn't need to be specified. Number is not assignable to type
Yeah, yeah.
string.
We made it a string. So
Oh
now,
no, this has to be a number. Hmm, how do you specify number here? Just int. Is there any other? Let's just use int. It's fine. Um, I need to create a new migration. Okay. Now I can start the dev server again and continue. Cool. Where is the monitors? Yeah, now it's happy. We need the response time as well. Did we not put response time?
nope.
I could have just seen that before. Response time. Int. Time for another migration. Um, Later on, we can squash all these migrations into one migration.
Uh-huh. So I'm not used to like manual migrations now. When I
Hmm.
use Django, I was able to now because Frappe has this hash-based migration, so it takes your JSON and like checks the hash and automatically figure out the migration code. So you just
Nice.
hit save and it makes the changes in your database. So that's kind of cool. So that's why I have learned less and less of this stuff. But yeah, that's I think that's cool. Why don't more projects do it? So that's
Yep. So you're saying it runs the migration on save itself.
so in your local, yes.
Hmm.
But when you push it and someone pulls it and runs migrate, right? Like the
Hmm.
migrate command, it just checks the JSON by hashing the JSON, and then it
Hmm.
can figure out what fields change and what not by diffing instead of creating a separate migration file and then whatnot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now we can actually pass handle monitor trigger here. Um, yeah, this is where I actually wanted to change the pattern of this function. The thing is, we need to pass an argument to this, but then this cron itself requires a callback. So one way is we can create a callback here and call handle monitor trigger with the ID received.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I sort of like doing is making this a
Mm-hmm.
factory or a closure. So
Okay.
instead of calling this handle, it'll be create a monitor trigger,
Okay.
or maybe create monitor handler. That's maybe a better term.
Yeah, mix of
And
both.
yeah, and this will simply create a callback that can be passed to the cron um, job module here, and this will take an ID that we are passing, and this does not require an ID. So we are passing ID, the monitor ID, and creating a callback that gets passed to cron.
Cool.
So just looks
Nice
expressive, I
pattern.
guess.
Yeah.
Format, organize, inputs. Cool. So we have the monitor setup. We can actually now go and see in the database if things come. I'll have to start the dev server, I think. So what will happen is I can specify the frequency now. Maybe I wanted to run every 10 seconds. So yeah, maybe at a later point this can be changed into a UI where the
Select.
user, yeah. Because cron is for developers it might be fine. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
this can be like the advanced input.
Yeah,
Um,
so it can be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the common stuff, and then cron syntax. That could be the last option. That basically shows a text input, maybe.
hmm. So I think now we can see if logs show up. Did I turn off Visual Studio? No, it's still running. Oh, I think I updated the schema so many times. I need to run this again.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm getting the logs, which is nice. So we made three requests. All of actually
Mhm.
it has yeah it went after 3 3 seconds after 10 seconds as I specified 33
Mm-hmm.
42 52.
Still going.
uh, yeah, it's still going, and we can see the response time which was 3 seconds 2 seconds, kind of slow for example.com, and the status code. Nice. Um, Now what I'll do
Nice.
is let's try to do something interesting. I'll actually create a new API route,
Mm-hmm.
and um, let's not use this one. Let's create a new one. Example. This will be example.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'll copy this, enable rate limiting, very aggressive rate limiting of like 2 requests per minute. um, and come here and change the. Oh, I was sending requests to abc.com. I don't even know what's there.
Ah,
Um,
let me just check. abc.com. Yeah, yeah, it has a lot of content, so it's kind of ABC. Okay, it's that I don't know. Many sitcoms uh, are produced by these guys. Uh, Sitcoms by ABC. Grey's Anatomy. The Good Doctor. Yeah, The Good Doctor. Now I recall where I saw ABC. They have like until 2020 they have worked with them. Cool. Oh, it's
okay.
503.
Yeah, because I have
503.
enabled rate limiting, right? So requests are actually throwing 503. Um, I think the reset window is after a minute. So I think we might be able to see some successful responses after a minute has passed. After maybe 20. So we have to wait like for 10 seconds. Yeah, now it's again success. Cool.
Nice.
So we are getting all the logs. The user can change the frequency as well, because whenever
Hmm.
you change the frequency and save,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
starts the monitor and we make sure to stop any existing and update and create a new one.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So that is nice. The next bit is actually creating the status page.
Mm-hmm.
So we can create a
And we
status
still
page
have
which
like
will,
15 minutes for 2 hours.
let's see, maybe we'll, should we pick it up now, or we can actually do this in a new live stream as well?
Yeah, let's get something basic working and then we can have some polishing.
Okay,
I'm fine
let's.
with anything.
I have a feeling we might have to do another one because
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a lot of interesting things we can do. Um, because I sort of also want to crunch those logs that we are generating and show it in the actual, data
Mm-hmm.
that you
UI.
see, the multiple ticks that you see in the status pages.
Ah, okay. That could be
So
interesting.
yeah, yeah. Let's maybe get started with it. I'll
Mm-hmm.
create a new.
Yeah, let's get started. We can continue. So let's do a hard stop at 8 and then we can continue next week. Sometime we can discuss over chat and then we can plan. Cool.
So I'll create a new file which will be status page. This will simply be for um, parsing the logs that we are getting here.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, or I'll actually keep this running because we'll want to see some data, right? So I'll just keep it running. We'll get a lot
Mm-hmm.
of logs here. So this will be parse monitor logs. Um, and what this function will do is it'll take a project ID. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll change to project ID because we'll create one status page for the project, and
Okay.
inside that status page you'll see all the monitors that are there. So for backend you'll see one, that status indicator. Then for any other monitors that you add, all will be in one single status
Hmm.
page.
Makes sense.
So we'll first fetch all the monitors in this project. Project. We'll have the monitors for this project now. And for
Mm-hmm.
each of these monitors, we'll have to also get the logs. So it's suggesting me something. Monitor log, find many, where monitor ID is in this. Okay. Order by created at, which is fine. We'll be ordering it by descending order. We won't take just 10. What we'll do is, so the thing is, what happens is if you go on these status pages, um, let's see intercom status page. So they divide their monitoring, or the way they display it is in intervals of days. So here it's from 90 days till today. And these indicators, there are 90 of these indicators over here. So if I run a count on this, children.length, there's
90.
90, yeah, 90 ticks over here, I guess, for each day. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe for this demo, instead of doing 90 days, because the live stream is only for a couple of hours, we can make it
Mm-hmm.
maybe 60 minutes. We'll just see in the last 60 minutes
Yeah.
what logs we are getting. So I'll just do where monitor ID and created at is greater than or equal to. Okay, that suggested me something. So a sec. This is 60 seconds, so 1 minute. We want all the logs from the past 60 minutes to now. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what that will do. And now we should have all the logs. We can do something with it. And we have sorted it descending in the descending order as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's actually now group all of these logs in by the monitor that they are part of. So grouped grouped monitor logs. I'll just use group by from Lodash for this. Um, I think it's not. Yeah, it's this one. So what this does is it simply takes your it takes an array and it
Mhm.
groups them based on some parameter or any property that you specify.
Okay.
Here I want to order them based on their monitor ID. So I can say any log should be grouped by its monitor ID. And now what do we do? We'll go through. So we'll have to now parse for each monitor. So let's say there's one monitor, second monitor, third monitor. We'll go through each monitor, all the logs inside that monitor, and convert it into this format that is shown over here.
Hmm. So 200 is basically truthy, and then anything else is
Yeah,
probably
actually,
yellow or red.
there's also another state which is this orange. So it's actually called partial outage, or in some pages I've seen degraded performance as well.
Hmm.
So we can also do that. That we can measure through the response time that we are storing. So if the
Yeah.
response time
If
is, let's
it
say,
is more than average, or at least
Mhm.
probably
Yeah, yeah,
40%, 50% more than average, something like that.
right. So we'll go through each of these monitors, and now we'll get all the logs in that monitor. This will be grouped monitor logs. Okay, so we should have all the logs with us specific to the monitor that we are going through.
Hmm.
And what do we do now? We should group. So what do we? So here actually there's a new thing that appears. We are storing. So we are pushing to this database in any interval the user might choose. They can choose every 10 seconds, every minute, whatever frequency they have chosen. But we need to
Hmm.
convert this data into
Hey
this
Tosif, how are you?
this 90 days
Hmm.
status window that is there. And to do that, we can first start by grouping the logs um, based on the. So here we would have grouped it based on the day. Right now we'll group it based on the
Hmm.
minute. So let's group logs, and each log can be grouped based on its created at. Um, how do we get minute as a hash? Um, if we create a new date, let's say we convert it to an ISO string, we can take till this 22. So till the minute, this will be unique for all the logs within this minute, within 22 to 23 minute.
Hmm.
We can use this as a grouping key to group logs within that period. So let's um, do ISO string. Um, oh yeah, we need to split this as well. And this will be, what does this give us? It splits it based on the colon. The
Hmm.
first part is date and hour, second is the minute, third is the seconds. So date and hour, and then the minutes.
Then the
And
seconds, yeah.
we don't need the seconds because we'll keep our window as like minutes or days. So we'll
Okay.
only include till minutes. We don't even need to do all the slicing that Copilot is doing. And so this will group all the logs within a minute into one array, and
Okay.
will store it as an object. Um, let's call it group logs. Okay, so now we have grouped all the logs. Um, I actually want to return this data and see what we are doing. So let's just return grouped logs. And this entire map that we have, let's just call it result and maybe just return this. And we can create a new API quickly just to see
Hmm.
what response we are getting. So pages, monitors, this will go inside project. So we'll create a new status endpoint for a project. Code default sync function. No suggestion. I'm waiting for Gopal to suggest something.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't know what this is. It literally just has to call one function that we created. Um, let's just import all of this. Return, so return will be rest.json, and here, so this we can call. We'll also have to await here. Result wait. Now we need to pass the project ID. The project ID comes from this API route itself. Let's fetch. So then this status has to go inside this ID folder because we need it.
Mhm.
Okay. And we can fetch the project ID from the path. Text.query ID project ID. And this can go inside here. If let's say the project ID is not there, we can probably say project ID is required. Actually, no, the API itself won't be called then because the path requires the ID to be there. So it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. And we'll return the result that was created.
Cool. So I see in Twitter Bangalore is trending today. What is happening?
What is happening?
Anything else? You are in Bangalore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Day two of shows how pullers Sandhya Bangalore. Okay. Some movie or something? I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but yeah. Sometimes it trends for weather.
Mhm. Sometimes
Sometimes,
it trends for some random things.
yeah.
Um, let's see now. Status send. Okay, we get an error. What is this? Project ID. Parse monitor logs is not a function. Hmm, this is a function. Let's see. Interesting. It says it's not a function. Did I not save the file? I think I did not. Yeah, I didn't save the file. Okay, so here we are getting a lot of things. So what we have done is we have grouped
Mm-hmm.
data for every minute. All these logs are within this 24 minute.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is inside this array. Now
Okay.
we need to simply condense each of these so that we can show these green, yellow, red tiles over here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how can we do that? I think so. What we can do is if let's say in a group, if there is an error, we'll
Mm-hmm.
show that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if there is let's say degraded performance, we'll show that. And only if there wasn't any error or degraded performance, we'll consider that day was a successful optimal day.
Okay.
Um, so we can simply do group logs. We'll go through each of these values inside group logs and then map them. Now here we can do some checking. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking how should we do this because I want to do it in an expressive way where the code is very easy to read later on.
So yeah, maybe we can continue uh, from here.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Let's actually
because we'll
continue.
need, so we can make a good UI as well from that
Mhm.
part.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Let me stop your screen share. Okay. Yeah, so we have any questions? No, probably people are in holiday mood. But yeah. So yeah, it was
Yes,
nice.
happy Christmas
We
to
made
everyone.
some,
Happy holidays.
yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy, take a break, have fun. So yeah, Tosif says holiday session live are fun. We need more of this perfect use of time to tinker around. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Whenever you get free time, just try tinkering around, build stuff.
Yeah, some
uh,
of it turns out good and very enriching in terms of learning.
hmm,
Random projects, right? Sometimes turn out to be so much rewarding.
hmm.
So how's Slanted doing in terms
It's
of
doing
revenue?
pretty good, better than I had expected.
Mm-hmm.
The project, I think, is now 6 months old,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still, it is the most technically complex project I worked on this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so very
Anything
impressed.
else highlighting of this year?
I gave a lot of talks at
Mm-hmm.
various conferences, various events. Um, so that's a big highlight. I sort of feel I'll probably take some time from that off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it'll be a while. Maybe I'll go back on stage and give a talk again. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So
all the
I,
talks that,
mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I have the same experience. This time I gave a talk at India FOSS for the first time, and then PyCon also I gave a demo, and
Hmm,
Flappyverse was there. So a lot of October and September were full of this.
nice. Yeah, even for me, it started around June, then June, July. A lot of
Mhm.
time. The thing is, a lot of time goes into preparing the slides and the actual content.
Yeah.
So
You
that
have to be
itself
figure out
sort of,
like it is not boring and there not too much gyan. It has some story at least to tell. But by the way, your talk was very nice. It was just before mine, so it
uh,
was the first talk, and then mine was the second. So like
mhm.
it takes time. I can totally relate.
Yeah. For me, making the slides and everything itself takes a lot of time. So that is sort of that sort of deviates me from actual coding, right? So that's why I want to now spend some
Focus.
time on actual write and actually write some code. Maybe a few conference talks again. Let's see. But this year, I think I gave like 4 or 5 talks. So I don't know how people manage it, but yeah, I'm sort of happy with these many.
Yeah. Nice. Cool, cool. Yeah, anything else before we go offline?
Just so whatever code I've written, I'll push it on GitHub.
Yeah, yeah, so we
Um,
can start it from here. Maybe create a PR or something
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
people can
We'll
follow.
create
Then we
a
can
PR.
start
We'll
from
post
that
it.
point itself.
Yeah, yeah. To anyone watching, do go check out the project.
Yeah.
It is open
I'll
source. You
share
can
the link.
contribute to it.
Diode, GitHub.
You can also put a link to my website.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, that's much better. Akash.
so
Uh,
anything that I've worked on, you can find over there.
Hamirwasia.com. Yeah, yeah, I bookmarked that blog. Okay, I have shared it in the chat. I'll also add it to the description while we are here.
Hmm.
Yep. Thanks, Akash. Thanks for joining. It was fun. I hope it was fun for you too.
Yes, it was definitely fun. Coding live has a different experience altogether, I feel.
Have you done it before, or is it like your first time?
No, so I haven't done live coding, like live coding before. So
Mm-hmm.
in the blogs that I write,
Mm-hmm.
they have pre-recorded, videos of me coding and
Mm-hmm.
doing things basically what the blog is about.
Mm-hmm.
So I have recorded videos of me coding, but
Mm-hmm.
doing it live is a different experience.
Yeah, yeah, you figure out, okay. I didn't save a file right now. Go back.
Yeah, the thing is, these recorded videos are,
Mhm.
very perfect. If you just watch them,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll remove.
It makes it everything look like easy, easy, happy path, right?
Yeah,
And here
yeah.
you go all paths, and sometimes you what do you say? Spend hours on a bug. That also gets recorded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In recorded videos, my goal is to remove
Yeah, yeah. To
bits
make it
from the
like,
videos that are
hmm,
unnecessary.
yeah, cool, cool, cool then.
Okay,
Okay,
it
everyone.
was nice
Goodbye.
doing
Thanks,
this.
thanks
We'll
again.
continue building.
Yeah, we'll continue from here in the
Yeah.
next episode. So this will be episode 3B. That's how the naming convention works now, but
Hmm.
I got to stick to it now because I started it. I'm yet to find a better naming convention for episodes that get split. Probably
I have
one
a
will.
suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe go with the semantic versioning 3.1, 3.2.
Ah, that can be done, right? Like, yeah, it's better than. So I have this. I did this merge store series for FOSS United. So it's 22, 22B, 22C, HIJ. It is still J. So
Hmm.
that's a good point. I'll start with 3 point. So this could be renamed to 3.1 and that could be 3.2.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, thanks. I'm going to do that. So New Year, all episodes will be like that. Cool.
Yes.
Much better.
New change from the new year.
Yeah.
Nice to see.
Yeah, yeah. Even the camera has changed now, so I'm no longer using my phone. So that's why you might see like it is a bit focused. I'm still figuring out lighting. I will figure
Uh,
it out. It's too much right now, but I'll figure it out slowly. I'm learning
nice.
settings. There are so many settings on a camera. I didn't even realize I needed those.
Hmm. Yeah, Hussein has become a proper YouTuber now.
So that was the highlight of 2023. I switched from engineer to a YouTuber.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
has
that's
been
really.
fulfilling.
I actually used to make a lot of YouTube videos.
Yeah, I know you have more subscribers than me.
I used to make videos on Blender.
That is, yeah, Blender is cool. I think your channel name is that too, right?
No, my channel name is my name
Blender is
only,
cool.
but
Akash, I'm just searching for your channel now. Yeah, got it.
yeah,
2.56 subscribers. 56K. 2.56K.
yeah, I sort of stopped making videos over there. Maybe
Hmm.
I'll come back. Who knows?
Yeah, the last video you have put is like 2 years ago.
Hmm. Actually,
Blender.
the thing is, that channel has become a Blender channel, and
Hmm.
the things that I'm doing right now, like all those blog videos that I put on the blog, those
Hmm.
are also in this channel, but they are unlisted. So, because I don't want to mess with the theme of the channel right now, because it's a Blender focused channel. I don't want
Hmm.
to,
Makes sense.
start posting coding videos. Whoever has subscribed will be like, what is happening?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
I need
that's
to,
why it's a niche channel now. You can't.
uh, probably create a new channel.
Hmm.
But then I sort of fear losing subscribers and starting from scratch.
It's
uh,
hard. It's hard. Till you at 1K, it's like very. For me, it was thankfully smooth. So I don't know. I liked it. I kept going and going and going. And then now this series, right? This also is cool, I guess.
mhm.
Watching people code. Cool, cool. Yeah. That's it then. Have a nice day, everyone. Have a nice weekend, whatever is left. Tomorrow, by the way, special episode with Umar from Frappe. So he's going on leave from Monday, so we have to schedule it for Sunday. He's going to give an episode, a guest lecture in our Let's Learn ERP Next series. So he's going to teach us accounting basics. So see you tomorrow. I haven't put out anywhere this. I was just creating the thumbnail, so I will put it out tonight. So by tomorrow you will get it. But yeah, thanks, Akash again. Uh, Goodbye, everyone.
Okay,
See you.
thank you for having me.